Do you get offended for people to still call you Superhead?
Well, I think anyone gets offended when someone doesn't call them by their name.
Yeah.
So
I was in a marriage for a long time, a relationship, marriage, and even after the marriage was over, still involved in a relationship that almost, and not even almost, did destroy me.
I'm writing specifically to touch people who need to be touched. And when I'm writing about, for this book, especially domestic violence, I'm writing for women who have been there.
What Karrine Steffans just confirmed at 46 about the brutal AB she suffered will leave you speechless. The woman they called Superhead has finally revealed that powerful rappers didn't just exploit her. They orchestrated a campaign of violence that nearly destroyed her.
I can't believe I went through all these things, made it through all these things. So Vindicated almost didn't happen. It was very hard to write.
They forced her into degrading acts for hours, beat her until she needed hospitalization, and when she tried to speak out, they used their power to silence her.
Oh, they tried. Some people tried, but they have
In
people,
what ways?
And I have people.
Okay.
You know,
So
I would let my people talk to their people.
Wow.
Who would take care of that.
So, let's get into it. The name Superhead wasn't just a clever nickname. It was born from hours of forced degradation that would haunt Karrine Steffans for decades. What the hip-hop world celebrated as sexual prowess was actually the result of systematic abuse that began when she was just 17 years old.
So it was just a joke. It
Yeah.
was just a joke. And the joke went really, really far. Like, it went so far.
yeah.
The joke started with Kool G Rap, the legendary Queens rapper who became Karrine's first serious relationship and the father of her son. But behind closed doors, what looked like a glamorous romance was actually a 3-year nightmare of physical abuse and SA that would set the pattern for everything that followed. According to Karrine's detailed accounts, Kool G Rap would force her to perform oral intimacy for up to 2 hours at a time, as punishment whenever she did something he deemed wrong. My relationship with G is what made me know how to give fellatio, because he made me do it for sometimes 2 hours at a time, she revealed in a 2005 radio interview with Wendy Williams. If I did something wrong, I had to perform until he was happy, and that was part of the abuse that I went through. But the SA was just the beginning. Kool G Rap allegedly subjected Karrine to regular beatings, spitting in her face, and constant verbal degradation. He would call her stupid, ugly, skinny, and worthless, while carrying on affairs with other women. When she became pregnant at 19, instead of celebrating the news, he kicked her out of his house and forced her to live in a homeless shelter while 3 months pregnant.
Strength comes from knowing your weakness.
Absolutely.
You know, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of weakness.
It comes from pain.
There's a lot of weakness in Vindicated.
The physical violence escalated to the point where Karrine required hospitalization on multiple occasions. While Kool G Rap has denied breaking her ribs, he's admitted to physical altercations, claiming she threw some big shit and almost hit me in my face. But his version of events doesn't explain why a teenage girl with no family support would repeatedly return to a relationship that left her battered and broken. The psychological damage was even more severe than the physical abuse. After years of being told she was worthless by both her alcoholic mother and Kool G Rap, Karrine's self-esteem was completely destroyed. This made her vulnerable to the predators who would follow, each one exploiting the trauma patterns established by her first abuser. When Karrine finally found the courage to leave Kool G Rap in 1999 with their 1-year-old son, she thought the worst was behind her. Instead, she was about to enter an industry where powerful men would use her broken self-worth and survival skills against her, turning her trauma into their entertainment while she desperately searched for the love and validation she'd never received. The name Superhead became a badge of honor in hip-hop circles, but for Karrine, it was a constant reminder of the abuse that created it. Every time someone used that nickname, they were celebrating her degradation without understanding the violence and coercion that made it possible. After escaping Kool G Rap's abuse, Karrine thought she was entering a glamorous world of music videos and celebrity parties. Instead, she discovered that hip-hop's biggest stars were predators who saw her trauma as an opportunity to exploit a vulnerable young woman desperate for love and validation. The pattern was always the same. Powerful rappers would use their celebrity status and wealth to seduce her, promise her security and affection, then reveal their true intentions once she was emotionally invested. What the public saw as consensual relationships between adults were actually calculated manipulation tactics used by men who understood exactly how to exploit childhood trauma.
What do you think it is that has drawn the two of you together for so long throughout all these other relationships you've both been in?
This is the one relationship that I could never end, and I had to ask myself, what is it about this? Why are we still here?
Ja Rule was among the first to exploit Karrine's vulnerability after she escaped Kool G Rap. Their encounter at the Garden of Eden nightclub led to a relationship where Ja Rule gave her the Superhead nickname that would define her for decades. But what seemed like playful flirtation was actually Ja Rule commodifying her trauma, turning her survival skills into a marketable identity that other rappers could consume. The abuse wasn't always physical. Often it was psychological manipulation designed to keep Karrine dependent and available. Rappers would shower her with expensive gifts and promises of love, only to disappear when she needed them most. When she became homeless and desperate, calling these same men for help, they refused to assist because she was no longer the good time girl. Method Man, who Karrine later revealed was the mysterious Papa from her books, represented another form of exploitation. As a married man, he used his status and charm to maintain a secret relationship while ensuring Karrine could never publicly acknowledge their connection. This forced her into a shadow existence where she provided emotional and physical intimacy, but received none of the respect or security that should come with genuine relationships.
Have you ever felt jealous of any of Wayne's other relationships?
I don't care what he does when he's not with me. If he's happy, if he's healthy and he's safe, it's fine.
The most complex and damaging relationship was with Lil Wayne, which Karrine has described as lasting nearly a decade, despite both of them being involved with other people. Wayne represented everything Karrine had been conditioned to accept: a powerful man who could provide occasional affection and financial support, but who would never commit to treating her as an equal partner. What made Wayne's exploitation particularly cruel was how he used Karrine's genuine feelings against her. She's described their connection as unconditional love and credited him with helping her leave abusive relationships and overcome personal struggles. But this emotional manipulation kept her available as his side piece for years, accepting scraps of attention while he publicly committed to other women. The hip-hop industry's treatment of Karrine wasn't accidental. It was systematic. These men understood that she came from abuse and had learned to equate this with survival. They exploited her trauma responses, knowing she would accept degrading treatment because it felt familiar and because she had been conditioned to believe she didn't deserve better. Industry executives and other powerful figures enabled this exploitation by maintaining the culture that treated women like Karrine as disposable entertainment, rather than human beings deserving of respect and protection. The same system that celebrated these rappers' music and elevated their status was complicit in the abuse that continued to destroy Karrine's sense of self-worth. When Karrine finally began speaking publicly about these relationships, the industry's response revealed the depth of the conspiracy against her. Instead of acknowledging the abuse or supporting her healing, they attacked her credibility and painted her as an opportunistic liar trying to profit from famous men's reputations. When Karrine published Confessions of a Video Vixen in 2005, she expected backlash from the men she exposed. What she didn't anticipate was a coordinated industry campaign designed not just to discredit her, but to destroy her completely through intimidation, threats, and violence. The retaliation began immediately after her book hit the bestseller lists. Karrine has revealed that people connected to the rappers she wrote about didn't just criticize her publicly. They actively tried to harm her through intermediaries and street connections.
Oh, they tried. Some people tried, but they have
In
people,
what ways?
and I have people.
Okay.
You know,
So
so I would let my people talk to their people. Who
Wow.
would take care of that.
Karrine revealed attempts to intimidate and possibly harm her that went far beyond normal celebrity disputes. The fact that she needed people to protect her from other people reveals the street-level violence that was being used to silence her testimony about hip-hop's abuse culture. What makes this retaliation campaign particularly sinister is how it was disguised as organic backlash from offended fans and industry insiders. Critics dismissed her as an opportunistic gold digger trying to profit from famous men's reputations. But this narrative was carefully constructed to hide the systematic abuse she was exposing. Kool G Rap's response to her allegations demonstrates how the industry coordinated its attacks. Instead of addressing the specific abuse claims, he focused on discrediting her character and painting himself as the victim of a vindictive ex. His wife, Ma Barker, allegedly recorded conversations with Karrine, gathering ammunition for a counterattack that would make her look unstable and untrustworthy. The most revealing aspect of Kool G Rap's defense was his admission that some of her allegations were true while denying others. "I didn't break her ribs," he stated, implying that other forms of physical violence did occur. This selective denial is a classic abuser tactic, minimizing the violence while shifting blame to the victim.
they tried in the worst ways.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but not knowing that the person they were talking to was my people.
Wow.
So you're trying to get my henchmen to come get me.
The industry's retaliation went beyond individual responses from the men she exposed. Record labels, media outlets, and industry executives participated in a coordinated effort to minimize her credibility and influence. Radio shows that had previously welcomed her began canceling appearances. Music journalists who covered hip-hop started portraying her as a pariah rather than someone exposing legitimate abuse. Television appearances became battlegrounds, where hosts like Tyra Banks launched personal attacks disguised as tough interviews. Banks repeatedly tried to shame Karrine for dedicating her book to her son and for continuing to associate with famous men after claiming they had abused her. These weren't journalistic inquiries. They were coordinated attempts to break her psychologically and discourage other women from speaking out. The financial pressure was equally intense. Legal threats from powerful men and their attorneys forced expensive defensive measures. Publishing companies became reluctant to work with her after facing pressure from industry connections. Even as her books became bestsellers, the profits were diminished by legal costs and security expenses. Perhaps most disturbing was how the retaliation campaign used Karrine's own survival mechanisms against her. The same trauma responses that had made her vulnerable to abuse, her need for validation, her willingness to accept degrading treatment, her pattern of returning to harmful relationships, were weaponized to make her appear unstable and unreliable. The message from the hip-hop industry was clear. Women who exposed powerful men's abuse would face consequences that extended far beyond public criticism. They would be threatened, intimidated, financially attacked, and psychologically tormented until they either recanted their stories or disappeared entirely. This systematic retaliation wasn't just about protecting individual reputations. It was about maintaining an industry culture where powerful men could abuse vulnerable women without fear of meaningful consequences. Even after exposing hip-hop's darkest secrets and achieving best-selling author status, Karrine couldn't escape the cycle of abuse that had defined her life since childhood. Her pattern of attracting and accepting abusive relationships continued with devastating consequences, proving that speaking out about trauma doesn't automatically heal it. Her marriage to Family Matters star Darius McCrary should have been a fresh start, a chance to build a healthy relationship with someone outside the music industry. Instead, it became another chapter in her ongoing nightmare of domestic violence and psychological manipulation.
I was at home with my husband, raising 2 kids, taking care of everyone, and while the world thought I was gallivanting around.
In 2010, while married to McCrary, Karrine wrote a devastating letter detailing the abuse she was enduring. For the past several years, I have been involved in a highly abusive relationship. I have been choked, whipped with belts, thrown about, berated, belittled, raped, and disregarded as a human being. I have been abandoned and embarrassed, then loved and coddled. I have been caught in a vicious cycle and have left on many occasions just to return. The letter revealed how domestic violence victims are often blamed and isolated by their own support systems. When Karrine tried to confide in friends about the abuse, they would ask, "What did you do to him? What did you say to him?" The implication was always that she had somehow provoked or deserved the violence she was experiencing. This victim-blaming mentality was particularly cruel given Karrine's history. She had already endured decades of abuse starting in childhood, yet people expected her to have somehow developed immunity to manipulative and violent men. Instead of recognizing that childhood trauma makes people more vulnerable to future abuse, they treated her repeated victimization as evidence that she was somehow choosing or inviting the violence.
It's impossible for me to talk about things that I'm still dealing with. I write about things once I'm done with them.
The relationship with McCrary lasted until 2011, but even after their divorce, Karrine remained trapped in what she described as an open-ended connection that wouldn't allow her to fully heal or move forward. She later revealed that it took until 2012 to be completely done with a relationship that had started in 2007, demonstrating how abusive dynamics can persist long after official separations. Her subsequent relationship with actor Columbus Short followed the same destructive pattern. What began as a whirlwind romance that Short publicly celebrated on social media quickly devolved into another cycle of abuse and abandonment. Short initially claimed Karrine as his wife, then later denied being married to her after she exposed his infidelity on Instagram. The Columbus Short situation revealed how Karrine's public exposure of abuse was being used against her by subsequent abusers. Men entering her life knew about her history of trauma and her pattern of speaking publicly about her experiences, yet they continued to engage in the same abusive behaviors. This suggests they either didn't believe her previous accounts or didn't care because they assumed they could control and silence her more effectively than their predecessors. Throughout these continued cycles of abuse, Karrine maintained her relationship with Lil Wayne, which she described as providing some stability and genuine care. But even this connection was problematic because it kept her emotionally unavailable for healthy relationships, while accepting a situation where she could never be someone's primary partner. The tragedy of Karrine's story isn't just that she experienced abuse. It's that the same industry and culture that should have supported her healing instead continued to exploit her trauma. Each new relationship became another opportunity for powerful men to use her broken self-worth against her, knowing that her history made her less likely to be believed or supported when she inevitably spoke out again. Her continued victimization also served the industry's interests by undermining her credibility as a witness to abuse. Every new abusive relationship could be used to suggest that she was unstable, untrustworthy, or somehow complicit in her own victimization, deflecting attention from the systematic abuse culture she was trying to expose. In 2015, 10 years after her first explosive memoir, Karrine published Vindicated Confessions of a Video Vixen 10 years later, containing confessions that were even more shocking than her original book. But the most devastating revelation came in a promotional video where she admitted something that would change how people viewed her entire career.
It was difficult to write.
And that's
because-
why you almost didn't finish it.
Yeah, it was hard because you had to really take a look at.
I'm a writer. I write shit. The vixen doesn't exist, but you can't tell people that because they don't believe that. It was all fabricated, Karrine revealed in the promotional video. This admission sent shockwaves through the hip-hop community and raised disturbing questions about what was real and what was fiction in her accounts of abuse and celebrity relationships. However, her claim that everything was fabricated appears to be more complex than a simple admission of lying. Karrine has consistently maintained the truthfulness of her abuse allegations while suggesting that the persona of Superhead, the confident, fully empowered woman who moved through celebrity circles, was a carefully constructed character designed to help her survive and profit from her trauma. Kool G Rap's response to her fabrication admission was telling. In her first book, she mixed lies with truth and captured an audience that wasn't able to decipher what was true from what was false. This means that even he recognized some truth in her accounts while disputing others, particularly those that made him look worst. The most shocking confession in Vindicated wasn't about celebrity relationships. It was about the domestic violence she had endured in her marriage to Darius McCrary. The book detailed years of systematic abuse that had nearly destroyed her while the public believed she was living a glamorous life. This revelation recontextualized her entire public persona during that period, showing that her apparent confidence and success masked ongoing trauma. What makes Karrine's later confessions particularly disturbing is how they reveal the impossible position of abuse survivors in the public eye. When she initially wrote about her experiences, she was attacked for being too explicit and accused of exploiting famous men for profit. When she later suggested some stories were exaggerated or fabricated, she was accused of lying about serious abuse allegations. The truth appears to be that Karrine used fiction writing techniques to make her trauma palatable for public consumption while protecting some of the more devastating details that might have been too painful or dangerous to reveal. She's consistently maintained that the abuse was real while acknowledging that she shaped her narrative for maximum impact and safety. At 46, Karrine's current confessions focus less on celebrity gossip and more on educating young women about recognizing and escaping abusive relationships. She's become a lecturer on college campuses, speaking specifically about domestic violence and the patterns that trap survivors in cycles of abuse. Her foundation work and educational efforts represent perhaps her most important confessions, acknowledging that her earlier books, while truthful about abuse, may have inadvertently glamorized a lifestyle that was actually destroying her. She now emphasizes that the video vixen lifestyle she once appeared to celebrate was actually a survival mechanism born from childhood trauma and perpetuated by an industry that profits from women's pain. The most shocking aspect of Karrine's story at 46 isn't any specific revelation about celebrities. It's her admission that despite decades of speaking out about abuse, writing best-selling books, and achieving financial independence, she continued to attract and accept abusive relationships well into her 40s. This demonstrates the lasting impact of childhood trauma and the inadequacy of simply speaking your truth as a path to healing. Her current work focuses on helping other women recognize that surviving abuse and achieving professional success doesn't automatically break the psychological patterns that make someone vulnerable to future victimization. True healing requires ongoing work, professional support, and often removing yourself entirely from the environments and relationships that enabled the original trauma. Today, Karrine Steffans represents both a cautionary tale about the entertainment industry's exploitation of vulnerable women and a testament to the possibility of eventual healing and purpose. Her shocking confessions at 46 prove that the most important truths are often the ones that take decades to fully understand and share. Anyway, that's it for this video, folks. Bye.